Alright, out and about video. Yay. Not really. It's warming up, but this crap is still on the ground. Oh, they've melted by now. Anyway, video. So the hover blubber guys responded to Antakantavad and having this conversation, blah blah blah. And to be serious, made whatever nothing videos, right? About how we're supposed to think for ourselves, which is so ironic coming from people who are constantly hawking books and other people's ideas, and always defending a bunch of status quo, Borgish ideology. You're just what is this? So anyway, I guess the point is the hover blubber guy said this idea of provisional, theories of reality, so to speak, truths, and I guess you people really are going to stick with that kind of nonsense, huh? That we can't make beyond reasonable doubt conclusions about reality. It is really funny that you seem to have enough confidence to do so many things. In your life, you depend on reality all over the place. Expectations about even what the future will have. You'll produce children and throw them into the future with these expectations of what reality is going to do. Yet you don't think the snow is on the ground. You don't think I'm walking in it now. You have some doubt, some realistic, reasonable doubt that we're all just living in what's just a piece of candy corn or something. Geez, it's just so irritating. I mean, this was never an issue for me, frankly. I never worried about figuring out whether, we're all shanghaied into some kind of fake delusional reality. And the more I learned about the function of my sense-perceiving capacity, the clearer and clearer it became that it's not a functionality in terms of its crude capacity that would have any use if it didn't work right, if it didn't feed you accurate information. Now your psychology is a whole other subject, because that's not intended to give you real perspective. That's intended to keep you hungry and horny and in the game. But I mean, we can do this thing, can't we? I mean, it's just it's like Professor Anton and Matt. I mean, all you people, you're just all so out of control with all your all this desperation to keep redefining, to find something else without dealing with what we know the most probable, the truth that's the most explicit of all these provisional theories. Why don't you deal with that one first, and quit this pretense that you can make up all these others. There's nothing. I just didn't realize that everybody on Earth. I mean, I should have realized it, right? I mean, I should have drew the conclusion that. At first I thought I was crazy, and I realized, wait a minute, I don't have any evidence of my insanity except for my inability to understand these assholes I'm living with. And so I should have realized it. Wait a minute, that means they're probably crazy. That explains it. So why am I talking to crazy people? Because you can't kill them. Yeah, I guess that's why. I don't have much choice. But man, this is just such bullshit. I mean, you can come up with some kind of bullshit. You could just sit there and take the facts, you know, as bad as they are, and maybe you could do something with that. Maybe you could make some kind of, you know, silly argument about how it all means something, and you know, you've got a plan to constructively and purposely, you know, lead the little rats, you know, into their future. Yeah, maybe you could do something like with that, but you should do it. You should be fair to the truth that we know, and we know our origins. We know the mechanism. Okay, it's kind of it's a generic bot. You could put in a category, human bot, and it's going to have certain features and certain functionality, and yes, it will maybe speak a different language, maybe it'll eat a different food, maybe it'll wipe its ass with a different hand, but it just ain't doing anything mystical or magical. Ah, fuck, I was hoping this stuff would be gone. This is going to be a mess, because I'm going to end up in the water. Hey, right. Well, that's still solid. I guess if I go fast, I might live. Yeah, I might. Ooh, that last one is really dicey. Okay. Hopefully tomorrow that'll be gone. Anyway. What was I? I should have brought my hammer. I really thought it would just be melted off. It really is not that bad. I mean, it's, you know, not very sunny though. It's kind of gray. I guess that's the problem. A little more sun. Anyway. So, let's see, what's the point I want to get to? Oh, fuck. Okay. Oh, I lost my glove. Horse. Uh-oh. Oh, somebody on it. Sometimes you see a horse with nobody on them. It's like, uh-oh. Anyway, where was I? Oh, God. Yeah, just can't keep doing this. Keep trying to think of the way to do something irrefutable, undeniable, you know. But you can't do some kind of active God thing. You can't perform miracles. You can't do something. All you can do is try to put words together and say, look, here's a group of words. You know, I mean, they say something conceptually. Oh yeah, that's something else Antikondavad said in a comment. Categories only exist in the mind. That's what he said. And you know, it's just such a denial of what is taking place. When you describe a category, and you do it with the intent to be logical, you're going to be attempting to try to be as precise in the definition of that category that nothing falls outside. Nothing. I already said this, but it's like mathematics. It makes it easy because everything has more defined edges, boundaries. So if I say the category 2, then it's 2. It's not 2.2 or 1.8. It's 2. There's 2. That's the quality. That's the property. And only things with 2-ness go into the category 2. So it's very explicit. And you're describing something that's real. It's not a fake thing. It's a real thing. There are, 2 clumps of snow, right? There's 2. There's not 5, there's 2. It's an accurate description of the relationship between things. There's 2, and then there's nothing for a while, and then there might be 2 again, or there might be 5. But in that defined space, there's 2, and it fits the category. So anyway, so math is very convenient in that we can be precise. We can be, we can add decimal points, and we can add very explicit descriptions, and they'll match very explicit reality. So now when we get to messing with things, the problem isn't so much that our world is less explicit, it's that our language, it's like I don't know what the fuck, something pissed from a distance, maybe a tree, I don't know, birds, I don't know what, I don't want to know. Anyway, what was it? Yeah. I feel like crap a lot. One of the burdens of my existence. Feeling like crap. Anyway, where was I? Alright, language. Yeah, so our language has been hodgepodged together and is not well formed or well constructed, and it's not up to the task. So when we make a category and we use our words to describe what goes in that category, our definitions are often messy because we have words in our vocabulary that are not accurate. Words in our vocabulary that are not accurate. Not real words. They don't really define what's going on. I've used the example spontaneous, random. There's a lot of these words that have freedom. Yeah, freedom means something in terms of freedom from a cage, but it doesn't mean anything as an absolute concept. There's no way to even come close to cognizing anything close to a completely free thing. Yeah, no, it can't happen. Anyway, so we have words that are just overtly going to break the logic math because they're not coherent to reality. They're coherent to what we wish reality was, or what the ancients thought it was, but it's not coherent to the actual real circumstance. And now that we've discovered some truths about the mechanics, so I guess that's, you don't really need to go any further than that and just concede that, it's not that reality is horribly elusive. It's that the right words to describe it are elusive, because it seems most languages have a lot of not very well constructed words in them. Words that don't correlate to the actual function. Maybe that's somewhere to, that's the place to, that's where I started off, right, sort of, kind of, with the lament that this is the only weapon I have in this conversation is words, and they're not good enough. Okay, I'm not using them well enough is also an alternative theory, that I'm not somehow I'm not grabbing your hand properly and leading you out of the mire of disorientation and wrong-headed devotion to silly talk into this clinical, linear, geometric, concept of reality where we can understand the components and model them accurately and see through that model, through that modeling, that they aren't doing anything that needs doing. That it's all just a contrived contest that has nothing to do with anything purposeful or functional. It's just a complexification of matter controlled by the force of competitive selection. And that's it. It's an activity of no merit. It's impossible to describe it, but it's not even a silly walk. It's just a non-coherent event, and the event now, because it happens, this reproduction thing, it perpetuates. It will continue to echo or happen, and but it has no inspired origin. I think you can figure that out though without me letting you know. So anyway, enough. Till I know, do it over and over and over again. I really have to. I have to fly or something. That's what I need. I need to fly. I need to do something. I need some damn superpowers. Yeah. Anyway. Till the next time. Okay, I'm back. What the hell? Still kind of light out, so short day. Anyway. So I was just thinking about this idea of thinking for yourself. This doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter how many of you there are. It doesn't matter how popular or unpopular an idea is. It doesn't matter how. It just matters on whether or not it's something that can be qualified, logically qualified by some sort of regime that is likely to indicate the idea has substance or credibility. It's always best to be able to make judgments yourself, to have the knowledge to do that. But in some cases, people don't have the knowledge to do that, right? I mean, if some guy tells you that a jet engine, is 4 degrees out of alignment, you're just going to be like, okay, sure, because you're not going to be able to know how to find that out, or to test it yourself, or to any of that stuff. So it's out of your range. It's out of your qualifications. So there's some people who opine on reality, and they haven't really studied anything real. All they did was, half read, some book of Babel, and now they say, I know the truth. And that's kind of, whoa, way underdone. You'd think they'd have a deeper passion, especially if they believed this garbage. You'd think they'd read the whole book. It is kind of funny that people will claim and profess how deep their faith is, and yet they haven't read the book. They'll curse other people, you're going to hell, and they don't even know that they're going to hell. Yeah. hilarious. So I guess that's part of the problem with this, what we're doing here, is that maybe there are some sort of, you got to show up to this discussion about what the engine's doing with some sort of technical knowledge. You're going to have some knowledge of engines and mechanics and all that kind of crap. And to do this reality thing, I think there has to be an expectation that you have some understanding of physics and chemistry and biology, which are all the same subject actually. And that you know geometry and algebra and, just make up another one, trigonometry. All the same subject, of course. But yes, that you know this stuff, this math, science stuff. You have some, minimal qualifications before you get into discussions. Because otherwise you're just going to, distract everybody in their attempt to accurately diagnose the function of the engine with your little silly leprechaun or gremlin stories or some other kind of shit. You don't want to be wasting no time looking for 2-foot tall gremlins. No, that's a waste of time and energy. So thinking for yourself is absolutely useless if your self is unqualified to do any real thinking. So admit that first off. Let's say you're qualified to think, you're got some knowledge, and then the game is really just running models and running models and running models. And all you're trying to do is come up with some theory. It's like a murder trial. You're trying to come up with the prosecution has a theory, right? He says that guy did it, with Mr. Mustard's toupee, in the outhouse. And you're trying to prove it or disprove it, in the sense that you're just trying to say, well, are there any alternative explanations? Where the hell was Mrs. Mustard? Where the hell was Dr. Shivago? Where was Dick Coughlin? Where were these damn fuckers? When it all went down. And you can say, all right, if I can't explain where they were, maybe they done it. They all had motives, the fuckers. I'm just saying, yeah, that's the process. The process is to try to find descriptions, categories, guilty, that are well defined, well described, extensively described, and isolate and narrow and isolate and narrow until you have a statement that cannot be rationally challenged. This really is a top 10 location on my walk. Yeah, summer or winter, it's a nice one. Anyway. Yeah. So the point is that that's all we're doing. We're just putting truth theories on trial. And the idea is to come up with some sort of alternative theory. And if you can do that, then you can challenge the existing theory, or the one that's on the table, and you're a fair cop and all that crap. But if you're just going to show up and naysay, you say, maybe UFO's done it. Maybe we're in the Matrix. Maybe up is down and down is up and left is right and left is wrong. Maybe chickpeas are actually dog do. Maybe. No. Stop that nonsense. Stay in this range here of what we can nail down pretty certainly, and come up with a theory. Come up with a counter argument about how your, Mrs. Pollyanna did it with her phantasmagorical magic wand. think the woman with a magic wand is probably the right metaphor. Anyway, yeah, that doesn't quite work. So anyway, but yeah, dude, argue the argument, man. Argue the theory. Argue from the facts. And then tell me about how you're an original thinker and all that crap later. But stay on the subject to start with. Okay, original or unoriginal really doesn't matter if you're off the subject. If all you're doing is coming up with original evasions, I think I'll give my God a Hitler mustache. Yeah, there. I've changed reality enough. Now I can dispel anything, because now I can just say, well, what if God has a Hitler mustache? That's just a waste of time. Nice originalness. It's not even that original. It really isn't. But that's all originality is, right? Originality is just taking like wabbit tracks, and combining them with cat tracks, yeah, and calling it, ooh, that's not going to be pretty. Yeah, that's all creativity is. It's just combining crap. And, it's not magic. It's a perfectly reasonable process of trial and error. So yeah, do that. Do lots of mental trials in your brain and see if you can come up with a coherent definition of error. Now, I gotta pay attention here. Alright, this is the iffy one. I don't think there's anything under there. Yeah, I don't think there is. Okay, there, made it so far. Okay, this one's looks pretty solid. This one looks pretty solid. This one's definitely solid. Okay, that really ain't so bad. Okay, what a lovely spot. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, enough driveling. Drivel. The stream is really quite enclosed in snow. I wonder if the horse took my path. I believe it did. Cool. This ought to be entertaining. No, it didn't. Just me. Okay, till next time. And such, so forth and whatnot.